All right, now let's give you the very latest on what is happening on the ground from our correspondent, Mia Alberti in Beirut, Lebanon. Mia, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So both parties have agreed to a ceasefire and, of course, the cessation of all military actions in the Gaza Strip for a limited period, we are told. Perhaps give us a context in terms of the machinery behind, the negotiations and what it all means and entails.
Absolutely. I mean, this was a deal that took days to achieve, or weeks, if we can even call it that, since the beginning of the conflict. It's been 7 weeks. This would be the first deal that has been struck between Israel and Hamas, a positive step in the direction of perhaps obtaining a more long-term agreement between the two. And we are seeing many players behind these negotiations, not only Israel and Hamas, but mediators such as the United States, Qatar, which actually made the announcement on early hours on Wednesday about this truce. So this deal was mediated by Qatar, which we know many Hamas members live in that country, and so they have a direct contact with Hamas. And so it has been received with a lot of praise that this is happening after 7 bloody weeks of conflict there in Gaza, with a lot of effort from not only the US, Qatar, but also many countries in the region, in the international arena as well, with the diplomatic incidents in the middle with Turkey and Israel almost breaking down their ties due to what is happening in Gaza. So it was a truce, a humanitarian deal that took a lot of sweat, blood and tears from all involved.
Now, of course, in our previous statement, we said that 150 Palestinian women and children could also be released in Israeli prisons. Benjamin Netanyahu obviously talking about how this will be done in terms of receiving the hostages from Hamas, but not mentioning it in his statement. Instead, the statement that came through was from the Justice Ministry, we are told, that says up to 300, Palestinian detainees could be released. At what point do we know if this actually will be seen? Because, the Prime Minister also made it very clear that this does not mean an end to war.
Yes, absolutely, and they actually call it a lull. This was the word that the Israelis are using to describe this humanitarian pause in the fighting. Not a ceasefire, but a lull. Now, it seems like this agreement is quite ironclad. Qatar has said that they would announce in the next 24 hours when this agreement would take place, and so when we would see this pause in fighting in the south of Gaza and a 6-hour daytime pause in fighting in northern Gaza, as well as the release of 50 hostages made by Hamas, so 50 Israeli hostages or foreign hostages that are in Gaza at the moment, and 150 Palestinians that have been held in Israel for many months and years in some cases. What we also have heard, so we have Hamas confirming that at least 150 Palestinians will be freed. We have Israel confirming that 50 hostages will be freed, and also this humanitarian lull, as they call it, that would allow, according to Hamas, the entry of fuel, which is something that hasn't been going into Gaza, or has the amount of fuel that has been going into Gaza is not sufficient to, for example, power the hospitals and other essential infrastructures. So we are seeing these statements from both sides. Of course, both sides are not talking about the release of hostages, and that is why they have shown, both of them have shown, that they are open to increasing this humanitarian pause, this temporary ceasefire, if we can call it that. Israel has said that it will be possible to do that if there is more release of hostages. So as we have to wait until Qatar announces when this agreement agreement will be put into effect. When that happens, we will see if then Israel and Hamas can agree to the release of more hostages. It seems like they might, with Israel, as you mentioned, preparing a list of 300 Palestinians that could be released. So Israel there indirectly opening the door to more negotiations, to this mutual release of hostages.
Mia, I'm going to squeeze this last question in, and I want you to be very crisp about it. I mean, in all of these negotiations, we understand that attacks in Gaza are still continuing, particularly around hospitals and refugee camps. What's the latest on that front?
Absolutely, we're still seeing billows of smoke coming from Gaza. People there are still reporting blasts. The Red Cross is saying that it is fully evacuating the Al-Shifa hospital. That was the biggest hospital. And we're also seeing attacks in the West Bank as well. So fighting pretty much continues to be very intense in Gaza, with many people there, reporters there, from there, saying that usually before there is a truce, that is where the most intense fighting happens, and that is what we are seeing at the moment.
All right, Mia, thank you so much for your update. Let's leave it there for now. Mia Alberti for us there in Beirut, Lebanon, of course, just giving us an update in the latest story, the truce between Israel and Hamas being widely accepted.